At 6:47 a.m. on August 1, 1943, Lieutenant Colonel Addison Baker and Major John Gierstad climbed aboard the B-24 Liberator Hellswench at Benghazi Airfield in Libya as 178 heavy bombers prepared for what would become the longest and lowest bombing mission in history. Baker was 36 years old, the commanding officer of the 93rd Bomb Group with 11 months of combat experience. Gierstad was 25, had already completed his required 25 missions 3 weeks earlier, and had volunteered to fly this operation as Baker's co-pilot. Their objective was the Ploesti oil refineries in Romania, installations that supplied nearly 30% of Nazi Germany's fuel, and intelligence estimates predicted casualties approaching 50% before the day was over. Operation Tidal Wave demanded a 400-mile round trip at altitudes ranging from 50 to 500 feet, essentially treetop height. The Luftwaffe and German anti-aircraft forces had transformed Ploesti into the most heavily defended target in Europe. Earlier high-altitude attacks had failed. The only way to cripple the refineries was to fly directly through the defenses at chimney level, drop delayed fuse bombs, and hope the resulting explosions did not destroy the attacking aircraft themselves. The 8th Air Force had already lost 47 B-24s during training for this mission. Pilots misjudged altitude over water, slammed into hillsides during low-level practice runs, and collided while flying in tight formation. Command planners estimated that 90 aircraft might be lost over the target alone. That translated to 900 airmen. Baker knew those figures. Gierstad knew them as well. He had completed his tour and could have gone home to Oregon, but instead he asked to fly one more mission. Baker needed seasoned pilots, and Gierstad, the group's operations officer, understood the plan better than anyone except Baker himself. Would they survive what was coming? Please hit that like button. It helps more people discover these stories. And subscribe as we return to Baker and Gierstad. Hellswench carried a crew of 10 that morning: navigator Harold Sweetman, bombardier John McCormick, engineer James Merritt, radio operator Cecil Fite, and 4 gunners. Every man understood the odds. 1 aircraft in 2 would not return. But Ploesti produced 12 million barrels of refined petroleum each year. Every day those refineries continued operating, German tanks pushed deeper into Russia, U-boats hunted Allied convoys, and Messerschmitt fighters intercepted bomber streams over Germany. Destroying Ploesti could shorten the war by months and save thousands of Allied lives. The mission justified the cost. Baker briefed his group 3 separate times, stressing timing above all else. The entire strike depended on 5 bomb groups reaching their objectives simultaneously at exactly 9:30 a.m. Romania time. Defensive fire would be spread thin, anti-aircraft crews overwhelmed. Any delay meant concentrated resistance. Any deviation from the flight plan meant catastrophe. Each group had assigned targets. The 93rd was tasked with the Astra Romana and Uniria refineries. Baker's aircraft would lead the formation, setting the pace and showing his men the route through. At 7 a.m., engines roared across Benghazi airfield as 178 B-24s lifted into the morning sky, assembled over the Mediterranean, and turned north toward Romania. The formation stretched for miles at 19,000 feet. Initially, they would descend to wave-top altitude over the Aegean Sea, stay low across Greece and Yugoslavia, and reach Ploesti beneath German radar coverage. Baker settled into his seat as Gierstad took the co-pilot's position. Hellswench flew in the lead, with 17 aircraft from the 93rd directly behind. 3 hours into the mission, a B-24 from the lead navigation group lost power over the Mediterranean. It was the aircraft carrying the mission's primary navigator. The bomber descended toward the water and attempted an emergency landing, struck the waves at 140 miles per hour, and disintegrated. All crew were lost. The operation had just lost its pathfinder. No backup navigator knew the full route. Baker watched the formation continue north, aware that something was already wrong. The bombers crossed the Greek coast at 9,000 feet, then descended to 500 feet over Yugoslavia. They flew so low that pilots could see individual trees, and sheep scattered as bombers thundered overhead. Terrain masking was essential. German radar could not track aircraft flying below hilltops, but the low altitude increased fuel consumption and made navigational errors deadly. One wrong turn at this height could send the entire formation into a mountainside. Baker checked his gauges. Fuel consumption was normal, engines steady. Behind him, the 17 B-24s of the 93rd held tight formation. To either side, other bomb groups filled the sky: the 44th, the 98th, the 376th, the 389th. 5 groups, 177 aircraft still airborne, one target less than 30 minutes away. At 5 a.m. Romania time, the formation reached the initial point near Ploesti, the IP where bombers were to turn east toward the target. This was the critical navigation moment. Each group had to identify landmarks, turn at precisely the correct point, and follow the proper valleys toward its assigned refinery. Without the lead navigator, the mission commander's aircraft assumed navigation duties. Baker watched the lead group begin its turn. They turned toward Bucharest. The wrong city, the wrong direction. Baker recognized the mistake instantly. The lead group had confused one valley for another, a simple navigational error at 500 feet. But Bucharest lay 30 miles southeast of Ploesti. The lead group was pulling 3 bomb groups, more than 100 aircraft, away from the target and away from the mission. The attack plan was unraveling. Baker grabbed the radio transmitter and tried to reach the mission commander. Radio discipline had been rigid throughout the flight, with minimal transmissions to avoid German interception, but this was an emergency. The mission was about to fail. Baker called repeatedly. There was no response. Either the lead aircraft was not monitoring the frequency or radio interference made communication impossible. German jamming began the moment the formation crossed into Romania, filling the airwaves with static. Jurstad looked at Baker. The choice was stark: follow the lead group to the wrong objective and squander the entire operation, or break formation and turn the 93rd alone toward Ploesti, leading 17 aircraft into the most heavily defended target in Europe without the planned support of the other groups. No simultaneous strike, no divided defenses. Every German gun would focus on the 93rd. Command had predicted 50% losses with the full force attacking together. What would the losses be with a single group attacking alone? Baker made his decision in 5 seconds. He banked Hells went sharply left, away from the lead group and toward Ploesti. Behind him, every aircraft of the 93rd followed. 17 B-24s peeled away from the main formation. The original plan called for 94 bombers striking Ploesti simultaneously. Now Baker was leading just 18 bombers toward targets designed to absorb 5 times that number. German radar operators watched the split. Flak battery commanders received urgent reports: American bombers approaching from the south, small formation, 18 aircraft, altitude 500 feet, speed 210 miles per hour. Every available gun crew in Ploesti received the same order: concentrate all fire on this group and stop them before they reach the refineries. Baker flew toward the smokestacks of Astra Romana, 11 miles ahead, 10 minutes of flight time. Jurstad scanned the horizon through the co-pilot's window. Black smoke already rose over the city, and something else as well: small dark shapes lifting from the ground around the refineries. Dozens of them, then hundreds. Barrage balloons, steel cables hanging beneath them, designed specifically to destroy low-flying bombers. The cables would slice wings, rip through fuselages, and tear engines from their mounts. Ploesti's defenders had raised every balloon in the city. Hellswench was flying directly into a forest of steel. 9:17 a.m. Hellswench entered the Ploesti defense zone at 470 feet. The city sprawled ahead: 7 major refineries, miles of pipelines, cracking towers, storage tanks, smokestacks belching black smoke, and above it all, barrage balloons, nearly 300 of them. Steel cables stretched from ground to balloon, each designed to snag an aircraft's wing, shear it away, and send the bomber crashing into the earth. Baker had no option regarding altitude. The mission required bombing from chimney height. Delayed fuses needed time to arm. If they dropped from normal bombing altitude, the bombs would explode before penetrating deep into refinery structures. The entire mission depended on flying low, flying through those cables. The 93rd crews had trained for this. Practiced low-level bombing runs over desert targets in Libya, but training targets didn't shoot back. Training balloons didn't have steel cables. Behind Hellswench, 17 B-24s followed in tight formation. Nose gunners tracked the balloons ahead. Top turret gunners searched for fighters. The Luftwaffe had stationed 200 fighters at airfields around Pesti. Messrs 109s follow Wolf 19 as Romanian IAR-81s. Intelligence had predicted waves of fighter attacks during the bomb run. So far, no fighters appeared. German commanders were holding them back, waiting. The flak batteries would handle the bombers first. The first 88mm shell exploded 200 feet ahead of Hell's Wench. Black smoke, orange flash. Shrapnel sprayed outward. Baker flew through the blast. The aircraft shuddered. More explosions erupted across the sky. German gun crews had the range. The Ploesti defenses included 230 flat guns, 88s, AAA batteries, machine gun nests on rooftops. Every gun opened fire simultaneously. The sky filled with tracers, red lines streaking toward the formation, black puffs of exploding Shells. The barrage was so dense that pilots couldn't see through it. A balloon cable appeared directly ahead. Baker yanked the controls left. Hell's winch banked hard. The cable passed 20 ft from the right wing. Another cable to the left. Baker rolled right, flying through the forest, dodging cables that appeared without warning through the smoke. Jurstad called out positions. Cable high left, cable low right. Baker flew by instinct. The refineries were 3 mi ahead. 3 more minutes. The formation had to stay together. Had to reach the target. An 88 shell detonated beneath Hell's winch. The explosion lifted the aircraft 30 feet. Shrapnel tore through the belly, punctured fuel tanks, ripped through hydraulic lines. Red warning lights flashed across the instrument panel. Fuel pressure dropping in number 3 engine. Oil temperature rising in number 1. The aircraft was bleeding, but the engine still ran. The control still responded. Baker kept flying. 2 miles from target. Another barrage balloon ahead. Baker aimed between 2 cables, calculated the gap. 40-foot clearance on each side. Enough room. He committed to the path. Then the aircraft jolted. Hard impact on the right wing. The B-24 had clipped a cable Baker hadn't seen. The steel wire scraped along the wing leading edge. Tore aluminum. The wire caught on the outboard engine nacelle held. The balloon was now attached to Hell's winch. 300 pounds of rubber and canvas dragging on the right wing, creating massive asymmetric drag. The aircraft pulled right. Baker fought the controls, struggled to maintain heading. Another shell exploded. This one struck directly. An 88mm round hit the right wing route, punched through the fuel tank. Aviation gas sprayed into the engine compartment. Hot metal sparking. Electrical systems, leaking fuel. The mixture ignited instantly. Orange flames erupted from the wing, spread toward the fuselage. Hell's winch was on fire. 1 mile from target, 60 seconds to the release point. Baker looked down, saw an open field below, flat, clear, perfect for emergency landing. They could set down safely. The entire crew could survive, or they could continue the bomb run. Baker kept the nose pointed at Astro Romana refinery. The fire spread across the entire right wing. Flames reached back toward the fuselage. The metal skin glowed red. Temperature inside the cockpit climbed. Smoke filled the interior. The crew could bail out. Open field below meant everyone could parachute safely, or Baker could set the aircraft down, execute emergency landing, walk away. Mission failed, but 17 B-24s were following directly behind Hell's winch. If Baker landed now, those aircraft would follow. The entire 93rd would abort. The mission would fail completely. Jurstad knew the calculation. He'd flown 25 missions, survived the odds, earned his ticket home. Now he sat in a burning bomber, with a choice: survival or mission. He didn't reach for the bailout lever, didn't suggest landing. He checked the bomb release panel, verified the delayed fuses were armed, prepared for the drop. Baker understood. They were continuing. The flames grew worse. Fire consumed the right wing from engine to cell to wingtip. The aluminum structure began failing. Rivets popped from heat stress. Metal panels curled. The wing was disintegrating, but it still produced lift. The aircraft still flew. 45 seconds to target. The bomb bay doors were already open. Bombardier John McCormick lay prone in the nose, watched the refinery approach through the Norden bomb site. Cracking towers, storage, tanks, pipeline networks. The primary structures were dead ahead. Behind Hell's winch, the 93rd formation held together. Every pilot saw the flames. Every crew knew their lead aircraft was dying. But Baker hadn't turned away, hadn't landed. The formation followed. 17 B-24s flew through the flak barrage, through the balloon cables, through smoke so thick that visibility dropped to 100 feet. They followed Hell's winch. Because Baker and Jurstad were still flying, German gunners concentrated their fire on the burning bomber. Every tracer, every shell. If they stopped the lead aircraft, the formation would break apart. 88 rounds exploded continuously around Hell's winch. One shell detonated so close that shrapnel shredded the left horizontal stabilizer. The aircraft yawed violently. Baker fought the controls, used rudder and aileron together, kept the nose steady. The bomb site required stable flight. Any deviation meant missed target, wasted mission, wasted lives. 30 seconds. The refineries filled the windscreen. Cracking towers rose 300 feet high. Hells winch flew between them at 400-foot altitude. Wings level, speed steady. The fire had now reached the fuselage. Flames licked along the cockpit windows. Paint blistered, glass cracked from heat. Oxygen masks provided breathable air, but the temperature was unbearable. Baker's hands were blistering on the control yoke. He held course. McCormick centered the crosshairs. The delayed fuse bombs would penetrate buildings before exploding, cause maximum structural damage, destroy the refining equipment. He waited for the precise release point, calculated drop trajectory, accounted for wind, altitude, speed. The numbers aligned. He pressed the release. 4,000 pounds of high explosive drop from the bomb bay fell toward the Astro Romana facility. Hells winch lurched upward as the weight released behind Baker. The formation released simultaneously. 18 aircraft, 72,000 pounds of bombs. The delayed fuses meant the explosions would occur in waves. First bombs penetrating deep into structures, then detonating, then the next wave, then the next. The entire refinery was about to be destroyed, but Hell's winch was still in the blast radius. Baker pulled back on the yoke, tried to gain altitude, get above the coming explosions. The right wing barely responded. Fire had destroyed the control surfaces. The aircraft climbed slowly, 100 feet per minute, not enough. The bombs would detonate in 18 seconds. The blast radius extended 1,000 feet. Hell's winch was 400 feet above ground, 500 foot past the target, still climbing, still burning. The wing structure was failing. The fire had reached the center fuel tanks, and below, 18 seconds had just expired. The first explosion erupted beneath Hell's winch. A delayed fuse bomb detonated inside the main cracking tower. The structure disintegrated. Steel beams shot outward. The blast wave hit the burning B-24 like a physical wall. The aircraft tumbled, rolled 30 degrees right. Baker fought the controls, leveled the wings. More explosions followed, sequential detonations as bombs penetrated deep into refinery buildings before exploding. The entire Astro Romana facility was collapsing. Fireballs rose. 300 feet black smoke mushroomed upward. The 93rd had hit the target perfectly. Behind Hell's winch, the formation scattered. Each B-24 peeled away from the target area, sought escape routes through the flak, through the smoke, through the balloon cables. Some aircraft made clean breaks, climbed rapidly, turned south toward Libya. Others weren't as fortunate. A B-24 from the 93rd hit a balloon cable at full speed. The wire caught the left wing, sheared it off completely. The bomber rolled inverted, crashed into a storage tank, exploded. 10 men dead instantly. Another B-24 took a direct hit from an 88 shell. The round penetrated the bomb bay, detonated the remaining bombs still on their racks. The aircraft vanished in an orange fireball. Fragments scattered across 200 yards. No parachutes, no survivors. A third bomber flew directly through a flak barrage. 20 mm round stitched across the fuselage killed the pilot, wounded the co-pilot. The aircraft nose down, struck the ground at 200 miles per hour, cartwheeled through a residential area. 14 civilians died alongside the crew. The 93rd was paying the predicted price. Command had estimated 50% casualties with full formation support. Baker's group was attacking alone with 1/5 if the planned aircraft against the full defensive capability of Pashist. The mathematics were brutal. 18 bombers entered the target zone. 4 were already gone. 40 men dead. The survivors were still fighting their way out. Hell's winch climbed through the smoke at 800 feet, still burning. The right wing was completely engulfed. Flames had spread to the fuselage. The cockpit filled with black smoke. Visibility 0. Baker flew by instruments alone. Air speed Altitude heading. The gauges showed critical damage. Number 3 engine seized. Number 4 losing oil pressure. Number 1 running hot only. Number 2 operated normally. The aircraft was flying on 1 functioning engine and 3 dying ones. Jurstad scanned the instruments, checked fuel levels. Both right-wing tanks were empty, ruptured by flak. Leaking fuel had fed the fire. The left-wing tanks showed half capacity. Maybe 30 minutes. Flying time remained. The Mediterranean coast was 90 minutes south. They wouldn't make it. The aircraft was dying. But they climbed to 800 feet, high enough for parachutes to deploy. The crew could bail out. All 10 men could survive. Land in Romanian territory, become prisoners of war, but alive. Baker assessed their situation. The mission was complete. The 93rd had destroyed their assigned targets. Bombs had devastated the Astro Romana refinery. The other bombers were escaping. Some would make it back to Libya. Some wouldn't. But the attack had succeeded. Germany's fuel supply was crippled. The cost had been enormous. At least 4 aircraft lost, probably more. Hell's Wench was finished. No possibility of reaching friendly territory. The smart decision was immediate bailout. Save the crew. But Baker knew the statistics. Bailing out over Romania meant capture. Interrogation, prison camp, years of captivity. Some crew members wouldn't survive that. The harsh conditions, disease, malnutrition, and if Germany lost the war, which seemed increasingly likely, some prisoners might never make it home. Executions happened. Massacres. The SS had killed prisoners before. Could happen again. Baker made another calculation. Hell's Wench still flew. Damaged, burning. Dying, but flying. If he could gain more altitude, the crew could bail out over Yugoslavia, partisan territory. Friendly forces operated there, rescued downed airmen, smuggled them back to Allied lines. Higher altitude meant longer glide distance after the engines failed. Better chance of reaching partisan zones, but gaining altitude meant staying in the burning aircraft longer. The fire was spreading. Time was running out. Baker pulled back on the yoke. Hell's Wench climbed slowly, 900 feet. 1,000 feet, 1,200 feet. Every 100 feet of altitude bought the crew better survival odds, but the climb cost time. Time the burning aircraft didn't have. The fire had now consumed half the fuselage. Flames burned through electrical systems. Radio went dead. Intercom failed. Baker could no longer communicate with the crew. Couldn't order bailout. Couldn't coordinate evacuation. Each man would have to make his own decision. The engineer, James Merritt, stood in the cockpit doorway. Watched Baker and Jurstad fight the controls, saw the flames spreading toward the cockpit, felt the heat radiating through the metal walls. He understood what Baker was attempting: gain altitude, give everyone better chance. Merritt returned to his station, didn't bail out, stayed at his post. Monitored the dying engines, adjusted fuel mixture, transferred fuel from damaged tanks to functioning ones. Bought them precious minutes. Behind Merritt, the 4 gunners remained at their positions. Top turret gunner tracked the sky for enemy fighters. Waist gunners watched for pursuing Messerschmitts. Tail gunners scanned their 6:00 position. No fighters appeared. The Luftwaffe had pulled back. German commanders knew Hell's Wench was finished. No need to waste ammunition. The burning bomber would crash on its own. The gunners could see the ground through gaps in the smoke. Romanian countryside, fields, villages, enemy territory. They stayed at their stations. 1,500 feet the aircraft shuddered. Violently. Number 4 engine seized completely. The propeller windmilled. Created massive drag. Baker compensated with rudder. The aircraft yawed right. He fought it level. 3 engines remained, number 1 running on failing oil pressure. Number 2 still good. Number 3 restarted after cooling briefly, but the restart wouldn't last. The engine was damaged, running rough. Producing minimal power. The right wing was structurally failing. The fire had burned through primary spars. Load-bearing members. The wing bent upward under aerodynamic stress. Metal groaned. Rivets popped like gunshots. The wing was folding. When it failed completely, the aircraft would roll inverted, spin into the ground. No time for bailout. Everyone would die in the crash. Baker needed altitude before that happened. Needed to get high enough that when the wing failed, the crew could escape the tumbling aircraft. 1,700 feet, they were 15 miles south of Pesci now, still over Romania, still enemy territory, but closer to Yugoslavia. The partisan zones were 40 miles ahead. If they could maintain altitude for another 10 minutes, they'd reach friendly territory. The crew could bail out safely, get rescued, return to fight another day. Baker pushed the aircraft harder, demanded performance it couldn't give. The remaining engine screamed. Overheated, began failing. Number 1 engine caught fire. Different fire from the wing blaze. This one burned inside than the cell. Engine oil ignited. Flames shot from the cowling. The fire spread to number 2 engine. The only engine still producing full power. Baker watched his last good engine start to burn. He had maybe 90 seconds before complete power loss. 90 seconds to gain every possible foot of altitude. He kept climbing. Bombardier McCormick lay in the nose, watched the ground pass beneath, calculated their trajectory. Air speed dropping, altitude increasing slowly, rate of climb decreasing, mathematics were clear. They wouldn't make Yugoslavia. The engines would fail before they crossed the border. The aircraft would crash in Romania. But McCormick didn't move toward the escape hatch, didn't prepare to bail out. He stayed at his station. Trusted Baker's judgment. 1,900 feet number 2 engine. Died. Just stopped. No explosion. No dramatic failure. The engine simply quit. Starved of oil. Seized from heat. Gone. Now hell's wench flew on 2 damaged engines. Number 3 running rough. Number 1 burning. The aircraft couldn't maintain altitude anymore. Started descending 100 feet per minute, then 200. The descent accelerated. Baker had run out of options. The crew had maybe 60 seconds to bail out before the aircraft became uncontrollable. He needed to give the order, but the intercom was dead. He couldn't tell them to jump. And the right wing chose that moment to fail. The right wing separated. At the rout, the entire structure tore away from the fuselage. 28 feet of wing. 2 engines, fuel tanks, all gone in one catastrophic failure. The sudden loss of lift on one side rolled hell's wench violently. The aircraft snap-rolled left, inverted in 2 seconds. The centrifugal force pinned everyone against the walls, made movement impossible. Escape hatches were now above the crew. Gravity worked against them. No one could reach the exits. Baker fought the controls uselessly. With one wing gone, aerodynamic forces overwhelmed any control input. The rudder had no effect. Ailerons couldn't counter the roll. The aircraft was spiraling, twisting toward the ground in an uncontrollable plummet. Through the cockpit glass, Baker saw Earth and sky alternating rapidly. The horizon whirled. The altimeter unwound. 1,800 feet, 1,600, 400, descending at 3,000 feet per minute. The crew understood what was happening, felt the violent rotation, recognized the wing had failed. Merritt reached for handholds but couldn't grasp them. The centrifugal force hurled him against the bulkhead. The gunners tumbled through the fuselage, slammed into equipment, into one another, into the burning walls. McCormick in the nose watched the ground rush upward. Calculated impact in 28 seconds. He didn't scream, didn't panic, simply observed. Jurstad remained strapped in the co-pilot seat. The harness held him secure despite the violent spin. He looked at Baker. Both men realized this was the end. No bailout possible, no emergency landing, no chance of survival. The aircraft had become a spinning coffin. They had completed the mission, led the 93rd to the target, destroyed the refinery, kept flying when a safe landing was possible, made their choice. This was the consequence. 1,000 feet the spin intensified. Aerodynamic forces increased as airspeed climbed. The aircraft rotated faster, 4 revolutions per second. The remaining left wing began tearing under the stress. Metal shrieked. The fire spread throughout the fuselage. Consumed everything. The ammunition for the .50 caliber gun started cooking off. Rounds detonated randomly, sending bullets ricocheting through the interior, adding chaos to the catastrophe. The ground came into view. Trees, a road, farm buildings, Romanian farmers working the fields. They looked up, saw the burning bomber spiraling down, black smoke trailing in a corkscrew pattern. The sound was overwhelming. Screaming engines, rushing wind, exploding ammunition. The farmers scattered, knowing what was coming. 600 feet Hell's Winch completed its final rotation. The nose pointed nearly straight down. The remaining engine still ran, propelling the aircraft faster toward the Earth. Baker saw the impact point, a bare field. The aircraft would strike at over 300 miles per hour. The impact would be instantaneous. No pain, no drawn-out death, just sudden ending. 300 feet Jurstad reached across the cockpit, gripped Baker's shoulder. A final gesture, acknowledgement. They'd flown together, made the difficult choice together, would die together. Baker nodded once, kept his hands on the controls, perished performing his duty. Pilot to the end. Hell's Winch struck the ground at 9:47 a.m., Romania time. 3,000 pounds of remaining fuel detonated on impact. The explosion carved a crater 15 feet deep and 40 feet across. Debris scattered across 200 yards. The aircraft disintegrated completely. All 10 crew members died instantly. Lieutenant Colonel Addison Baker, Major John Jurstad, Navigator Harold Sweetman, Bombardier John McCormick, Engineer James Merritt, Radio Operator Cecil Fite, and 4 gunners, identified through dog tags recovered from the wreckage, the volunteer who didn't have to fly, the commander who led from the front, and 8 men who followed them into hell, gone. Romanian authorities arrived within the hour, recovered what remained. 10 Americans who had flown 1,500 miles to destroy oil refineries, who had succeeded, who had paid the ultimate price. The bodies were buried in a local cemetery, the graves marked with wooden crosses. The war continued without them, but their mission had changed everything. Operation Tidal Wave concluded at 10:32 a.m. on August 1, 1943. 178 B-24 Liberators had departed Benghazi that morning. 125 returned, 53 aircraft lost, 310 airmen killed, 54 captured, 108 wounded. The single costliest air mission in American military history to that point. The losses exceeded even the worst predictions. Command had estimated 50% casualties. The actual figure reached 30% for aircraft, but among crews that pressed their attacks to the target, losses approached 60%. The 93rd Bomb Group paid the heaviest price. Addison Baker led 18 bombers toward Ploesti after breaking formation. Only 11 returned to Libya, 7 aircraft lost, 70 men dead or missing. But those 18 bombers had destroyed their assigned targets completely. The Astro Romana refinery was knocked offline for 3 months. The Uniaria facility remained closed for 6 months. Delayed fuse bombs had penetrated deep into critical equipment. Cracking towers collapsed, pipeline networks ruptured, storage tanks burned for days. German engineers surveyed the damage and reported complete reconstruction would take years. Across Ploesti, the other bomb groups achieved similar results. The refineries that supplied a third of Nazi Germany's fuel were crippled. Daily production dropped from 12 million barrels annually to less than 4 million. The shortfall created immediate problems for German operations. Luftwaffe sortie rates decreased. Panzer divisions received reduced fuel allocations. U-boats spent less time on patrol. The strategic impact rippled throughout the Wehrmacht. Some historians estimate Operation Tidal Wave shortened the war in Europe by 3 months. But the cost haunted military planners. 53 aircraft, 310 men. The mathematics were brutal. Command evaluated whether the results justified the losses, whether destroying oil refineries was worth the price in American lives. The debate continued throughout the war. No clear answer emerged. The oil was crucial. The losses were catastrophic. Both facts remain true. Medal of Honor citations arrived 6 months later. 5 men received America's highest military decoration for actions during Operation Tidal Wave, more medals of honor than any other single air operation in history. Lieutenant Colonel Addison Baker received his posthumously. The citation noted he flew his burning aircraft to the target despite opportunity to land safely, led his group through the heaviest defenses in Europe, completed the mission at the cost of his life and the lives of his crew. Major John Jurstad also received a posthumous Medal of Honor. The citation recognized that he volunteered for the mission after completing his required tour, served as Baker's co-pilot, remained at his post in the burning aircraft, made the choice to continue when survival was possible, and died completing the mission. He was 25 years old, had finished his war, could have returned to Oregon. Instead, he flew one more mission, never returned. The other 8 crew members of Hell's Winch received no individual medals. Their names appeared in casualty lists: Harold Sweetman, John McCormick, James Merritt, Cecil Fight, and 4 gunners whose families received telegrams explaining their sons had died in action over Romania. Standard wartime notifications. Nothing that captured what they had done, nothing that explained they had flown a burning bomber through the most heavily defended airspace in Europe because their commanders asked them to. If this story moved you as it moved us, do a favor, hit that like button. Each like tells YouTube to show this story to more people. Subscribe and turn on notifications. We're rescuing forgotten stories from dusty archives every day, stories about pilots who chose mission over survival. Real people, real sacrifice. Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia? Our community spans the globe. You're not just a viewer, you're part of keeping these memories alive. Tell us your location. Tell us if anyone in your family served. Just let us know you're here. Thank you for watching, and thank you for making sure Lieutenant Colonel Addison Baker and Major John Jurstad don't disappear into silence. These men deserve to be remembered, and you're helping make that happen.